Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Board Report brought to you by IRC Media. I'm your host, Joann Binford, and my co-host tonight will be Kevin McDonald. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hi. Good evening. Doing fine.
We've got a great guest on tonight, so I wanted to introduce our viewers a little, let them know a little bit about who we're bringing on tonight, and that is Susan Aguirre. And she is a district aide for State Representative Robert Brackett. And Susan is also an active realtor right here in Indian River County. So if you're looking for a house, look her up. Susan is committed to education and local governance, which is reflected in her role as a school board director for North County Charter School. She is also a sub-grant committee member of the Children's Services Advisory Council here in Indian River County. That is our nonprofit committee that hands out some of our tax dollars to nonprofit entities. Susan is also focused on fiscal transparency and community advocacy as a board member of the Taxpayers Association of Indian River County. Thank you for her service. And let's dive into it with Susan Aguirre after this message. We'll be right back. So stick around, folks.
Models. We provide solutions that make a long-lasting Warrior Shield Foundation is here to unite, honor, and provide support for veterans, first responders, and Gold Star family members. The foundation will enable them to find the help they need through direct assistance or by connecting them with our shared vision network. Using data-driven models, we provide solutions that make a long-lasting difference. We, along with our partners, are dedicated to bringing together like-minded groups and individuals who have committed to making a difference in the lives of our hardworking, everyday heroes. We bridge the gap by connecting warriors or their families with the assistance they deserve and require, such as service dogs, wheelchairs, counseling, scholarships, and team building retreats, to name a few. You can help right now to make a difference for those who have helped and protected us all. Warrior Shield Foundation, selflessly doing for those who need it most.
It's a long way to home, but you won't take the hard road all alone. Just look to your left and look to your right. You were born to fight.
Welcome everybody back to the Board Report. We have Susan Aguirre with us, and she is the district aide for State Representative Robbie Brackett, and we've got Kevin McDonald with us here today. Yes, I hear you.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear us now?
No.
Oh, try it again. Let's see. Can you hear us now?
Let's see.
Can you hear me now? I feel like Verizon. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Nope. Go off and come back on. Close and come back.
Everything's the same.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Let's see.
Go
Is your mic on?
and come back on.
Yeah. I'm on. I don't hear anything. I don't know if you guys
I
hear me.
noticed that happened too when I was trying to do live feeds. Sometimes on the phone, it kind of messes up.
Let's see.
Yeah. Let's kick her off and make her come back on. Kick from studio. I'm going to kick her off on purpose and make her come back on because she can't hear us.
Okay.
She's going to be like, what just happened? Hi, everybody. Sometimes we have a little bit of a connection when people use their phones. So I just purposely kicked her off so that she'll have to join back on, and that should reset her. So we're going to wait for her to come right back on. And she'll probably, I just sent her a text message. She'll probably check that, and she'll see what I'm doing. But anyway, I met Susan way back when I was running for county commission. I want to say that was in 2021, 2022. And at the time, she was a member, or she was at the same meeting that I went to. Remember Ryan Blade? He used to run the IRC Media, and he also was involved with the Young Republicans. So that's when I first met her, was in Sebastian at the Young Republicans. So she has been always active in the community and speaking and talking about how to win elections, how to serve the people way back. So she goes way back. She also volunteered and helped out with the Hispanic Republicans Club as well. And I was always impressed with her because she's a young adult from the Gen Z generation and very articulate. She can get up on stage and take it over. All right.
Hi.
You hear us now?
I do.
Sorry, sweetie. I purposely kicked you off because you couldn't hear.
That's okay.
So you see, everybody, the plan was great. So I kind of gave the audience a little bit of an overview of you of when I met you for the first time. And I don't know if you remember, it was at the Young Republicans Club in Sebastian, because Ryan Blade had brought me to the club. Remember that?
Yes, it was over at Woody's, right? It was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where it was. Yeah, and that's and I was just explaining them to telling everybody that you've been very involved in the community, and part of the Hispanic Republicans Club. So now I'm going to give the floor to you. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on. I think it's great that you're the aide for Robbie Brackett, so you're involved more in our community. So tell us what's going on.
So I mean, I guess, in short, I get to see everything from 3,000 feet in the air, right? And I see it from all sides of the coin. Being a district aide puts me in a different position to see things legislatively and see things on the process side, right? And how those things work and how Tallahassee works and how that kind of trickles down. But on the local side and the community, really, it's a different ball game. And I was really, really like sticker shocked when I started to become involved and, getting involved with Taxpayers Association. And then that led me to Children's Service Advisory Council. And that then led me to volunteering to, for the Veterans Council, Clay Shoot, and just seeing all the nonprofit. Now, a little background, I do come from the nonprofit world. I was the events coordinator and fundraiser for a Senior Resource Association. And that was really a big eye opener for me in the nonprofit sector. So I already had that background. And then, becoming more and more involved and invested and just to see how budgets were working and where people were, getting money from and taking money from and all the things. And, then I was offered an opportunity to join the board for North County Charter Elementary School. And the school was, it was really, it was in a transitionary period. It was a school in crisis at one point, and it had to really make a turnaround post COVID. And a couple years, after a new administration came in and took on those roles, and all the things happened, and everything kind of fizzled just a little bit. Right now, we're way beyond baby stages at the school. Now we are exceeding in abundance, the threshold and coming in with better grades. We're a higher rated school now. We're away from all the things that really got us in the trenches to begin with. But still, we're always a work in progress. And I love that. I love being in that position because it always leaves room for opportunity for growth, expansion, and better ideas to serve the children. They are our biggest stakeholders, are the kids. And what does that mean is really identifying issues in the community that impact the kids, the families, and our parents. So when I got on the board, I saw how, things were going. I had a lot of learning to do. I'm still learning. But then there's common sense theory. And I don't know, that's the one thing I feel like. So I get on there, I do my thing, and I recognize that even in the charter school system, there's in the North County region, even because I'm North County, not a lot of there's not a lot of voice there. It's very quiet. I saw that with Children's Service Advisory Council as well. And so diving into that, cutting to the chase, I get a text message from a parent telling me, "Hey, did you know about this notice?" Boom. And I get a picture and I get the letter that on August 28th, there was a meeting, or maybe sooner, I don't remember the date exactly, but county commission had put on the agenda for a preliminary rezoning, and then it passed, and it was already 2 3 weeks post when we found out. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what do we got to do? What's really happening? And what really was going on there was a rezoning to allow for 4 more parking spaces at the old Dixie Manor. So the old Dixie, it was an assisted living. Well, it was like like an assisted living community. I don't know exactly. I think there's a different term for it. Don't quote me on that. But right on Old Dixie Highway, right by the school. And when I started looking into it, I had asked principal, "Did you know about this?" And he's like, "No." And then he ended up getting a letter out of, courtesy, I guess, or something rather. But there's no state statute that limits where a detox center can be, really. But what supersedes that is an ordinance in the county. And the county ordinance has something along the lines of it. If you're within 300 feet, or a business within 300 feet, you get a notice. Well, we're 1,209 feet away from the detox center, from property line to property line, and then maybe 1,500 feet from door to door. So that, really set, the flip the switch for me, because we didn't have ample notice. And across the street, across US 1 on the opposite side, is the Antilles. And I wondered, well, did they get a notice? When I went to the meeting, a month or so ago, and the principal went, and several parents were in attendance, it dawned on me at that meeting that the detox facility and the individuals, the administrators who are going to be running it and doing all the things, um, they really, one gentleman in particular wasn't really abreast of the fact there was a school right down the road. And they didn't seem very concerned. And, one of the commissioners was like, "Oh, it's like an extended stay hotel."
Huh.
And that was infuriating to me,
Wow.
because that's not what this is. I made the comment that, you're looking at acute care rehab, and that acute care accounts for 40% of the people who are drug addicted to whatever substance. And then that 40% is the difference between, I did drugs here and I don't have enough drugs and I'm withdrawing and I'm crashing. And right before they hit that withdrawal, that 40% is where a detox center comes in. Detox centers should be a relief to hospitals. So why this center isn't closer to the hospital makes absolutely no sense to me, why you would put it there on that road. And on a real estate aspect, typically we talk about 4% trend lines. From year to year, you calculate an average of 4% property increases year after year. In this case, putting a detox center on Old Dixie Highway actually decreases property values by 8%.
That's right.
It goes the opposite direction. But on an administrative side, we're talking about safety. We're talking about now our resource officers now going to have to implement further action into protocol in the event something happens at the detox center. And this center is an at-will center. So you're having medical Uber picking people up and bringing them to and from, in addition to family members who might be wanting to admit their loved ones or friends or what have you. And while the school and the administrators are completely uh, gracious in understanding that there's a need, what we cannot reconcile with is the fact that there was improper notification, even on a business to business professional courtesy,
Mhm.
that this would have even been approved to begin with without having a workshop discussion about the school being right there. And I don't even know if that was even a consideration, to be honest, because in speaking with Dr. Moore, the superintendent of the school district, he didn't know.
Right. In fact,
Um,
I think he actually he was the one who raised it to your school because they weren't informed, but he just realized it would be a conflict.
I know from what I understand, if I'm not mistaken, that Mr. Potter, our principal, had reached out to the liaison, and like nobody knew about anything. There was no
Wow.
discussion. There was nothing. I mean, and I would have said something. I would have, I encourage the parents to be proactive. I encourage the parents to be that involved. We are a charter school. I mean, that is the mission and the vision, right? That we have some autonomy over our school, the functions, and our students. And so, with this county ordinance, I have to look even more into it, but it does supersede anything else in writing. But how, how unfortunate is it that we're making unilateral decisions in such a manner, and then in the next breath say, we do it for the kids, we're doing it for the community, but that itself is keeping a big piece of our community out of that discussion. You have a walking path that lines the entire sidewalk from the detox center all the way to the school. It's a 5-minute walk. You're talking 1,200 feet.
So
I
the kids will
mean,
be passing the detox center.
well,
You
the
don't
people
know.
at the well, the people at the detox center could pass the school, and we have a fence there, so they'll walk right past our schoolyard. And so there's no security, and they even said they won't have overnight security. And in a fiscal year, they're gonna see, when we did the math, about 800 patients a year.
Hmm.
While they doted on the fact that they weren't going to take anybody from out of state, they never said that they wouldn't take anybody from out of county, which means that you're looking at more resources pulled from Indian River County to assist people who are from out of county in the name of that 40% that they're trying to capture. And that 40% in acute situations is still a very, very dangerous situation. My heart goes out to those individuals who are afflicted by drug addiction. And I made that very clear when I went to the county commission. I said, I understand that personally with relatives and loved ones. However, we have children to protect. That is our future. And we were a school in crisis, just getting our bearings back up and doing well. We're going to lose families, because what kind of talking point is that for us at this point? We're going to lose those families. And, you know, there are already parents that are already in the talks of like,
Taking
we
my
don't know
kids
about
out.
this.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that makes me so upset, because the administrators put their heart and soul into getting the school back up and, in running and doing what they have to do, for the sake of providing a safe environment, the service, and an education, top tier education. And our students are performing so well. And I don't want something like this to disturb that environment,
Mhm.
as just because it doesn't affect an individual or a commissioner or whomever who's on the outside doesn't abdicate you of the responsibility that you have as a community person, right? A citizen of the community. If you are looking at everything in full spectrum, you have to consider that these are children that are voiceless, and we have parents and adults who are responsible for making sure that we're actually having the conversations and doing what is right by them. um and so, we look at the real estate side, you look at the business side, and then you look at the people side, and this isn't a win-win situation doing it this way. there are so many other avenues, but it was just practical because it was a building that was already erect, already established because it was previously, you know, an assisted living facility. And all it was to rezone it for 4 more spaces. Planning and zoning, um, really, they had an opportunity to shut that down. And, and not a dig
Did
at
they have
Terry
a
Barrett.
meeting?
They
Did,
did.
did, did
Planning and
they have
zoning had a meeting. They did.
a
And
hearing?
Terry, they had a meeting about rezoning that and it was approved. I don't know what the votes were on that one. I know Terry Barenborg she is on the planning and zoning. But from my understanding,
Really?
she was not in attendance because she was out. I believe she was ill, something personal. I'm not quite sure. And she had a proxy there. But um I don't know if she would have given it a nay, if it would have been enough to debunk rezoning this situation. I don't know how their voting situation works or nothing, but I was just like, gosh darn, like, like I just wish, she was there. And then when I spoke with Jackie, I was like, do you know about this? And
Nobody knew
nobody
about it.
knew.
And you
Well,
know
who's the
No,
what I
proxy?
I
Who's the
don't know.
person who? It'd be good to find out because the proxy would be another school board member.
Yeah, I
If it
mm.
don't know
wasn't
who the
Jackie,
proxy was.
it would have to
Well,
be.
you know what I find interesting about this is the hospital was trying to open up that sober home and they
Right.
failed. And here I'm wondering if there's some connection here where they kept this under the undercover
Yeah.
so that they can move whoever they were dealing with there that was supposed to have their sober home there, that now it didn't work. They found another place for them. I mean, it just sounds so convenient. We
Well,
failed
one
at
thing you
that
can be
property
sure
and
is
now we have.
they know that nobody wants this in their backyard. So whatever they do, they're going to do it very quietly.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they're not
And
going to really give a good. They're going to give as little notice as they can to as few people as they can,
of
because
course. Oh,
wherever they go, they're going to
absolutely.
get resistance.
I mean, and that's exactly what, I think the majority consensus, what I think would agree on that sentiment, because even with the superintendent not even knowing, I mean, that's the first thing your mind is going to go to. Like, okay, you knew no one was going to like this, but you did it anyway. And so let's, let's now focus on, oh, we're doing a good thing. We're not doing a good thing. Nobody even acknowledged that there was a school, an elementary school, 1,200 feet away. I mean, nobody in their right mind is really going to look at that and say, "Oh, that's a great idea." Like,
And that makes
Well,
no
and
sense to
actually,
me too, because they spend $4 million on CSAC because it's always about the kids.
and I sit on
CSAC's supposed
that,
to be
and
about the kids.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
right.
That's why they spend $4+ million
Mm.
for CSAC, because it's all about the kids, yet they could care less about the decision they just made that affects the elementary
Well, and
school.
it's worth noting that the whole purpose of a zoning board
Mm-hmm.
is to take things like this in consideration. And the two things you always take into consideration are the three: residential, of course, schools, and churches. And there are always laws that prevent certain things to get too close to schools or churches. Now, if I think as I remember when Dr. Moore brought this up at the school board meeting, that it was 1,200 feet was the minimum distance. So I think you were just beyond the reaches of that 1,200 feet.
1,209 feet.
Right. But the bigger thing is 1,500 feet, whatever it is, if there's a school that is involved, they should at least be discussing it with the school. Their purpose is not to, their role is not to get things done. Their role is to take all things into consideration
Mhm.
before allowing anything. And they obviously, either they don't know the territory that they're placing this in, they didn't drive by to see where it is, they didn't see the
Mm-hmm.
school, or they didn't really want to know.
And so, that's just one of my biggest concerns, with so many people serving on so many boards at one time in their lifespan and then becoming ineffective members. You know, how long does one serve on a board? And in all reality, I mean, even to myself, I have to check in with myself. I'm like, am I giving it 100? Because there's a board that I'm currently on. I'm like, and there's a lifespan to that, and you have to be honest with yourself. And I think that um, it's really negligent on the parts of those individuals, on the behalf of those individuals that are signing up to be on these boards. And it's the same echo chamber of individuals who are serving on the same thing, and it's just kind of going in circles and circles. And how effective really are you? And so when situations like this come up, who's actually the oversight, who's responsible for overseeing that? And one of the things I see slipping by the wayside is just that sometimes, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but it's definitely a feeling. And as a citizen, as a voting member in our community, one of the things that I can't reckon with is having a board of county commission have so many advisory councils underneath them and so many departments and divisions underneath them, and they not be the voice of reason. They've allowed so many of these groups to be the voice of reason to them. It's backwards.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
backwards
What it
because
does is it allows them to distance themselves from any decisions and anything that might cause controversy and complaints. They say, well, it's not us, it's the people who work for us.
Well,
right.
it seems like they're letting the committees, the councils, do all the decision making. Rather, the councils
Yeah.
are supposed to disseminate that information, bring it to them, and then they're supposed to actually analyze it, discuss it, look at it, have some disagreements to things, have those conversations.
Absolutely.
But they sit there, and I've watched them, and they're like, "That sounds, we've been doing a good job. It's always good, 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 good. Yes, here you go." There's
So,
never any.
And there should be a council person heading up that committee. So it's ultimately that person carries the burden of responsibility for knowing intricately what's going on in that committee, what they're deciding, and bringing that information back to the broader council, the county
right.
council. And if they're not doing that, then they're failing the county. And I don't think, quite frankly, it seems that in many cases they're not investing, as you say, the time and the effort to really know
Mhm.
what's going on.
And that's what happens when you have big government. That's what happens when you allow government to get so expansive that now it's so far out of reach. We see that with the federal government, right? Where it's just all these groups and these task force and this and that. And it's like out of hand. And who's really watching what's really going on? It's almost impossible because they've all gone rogue.
There's too many,
And
right?
it's too many. They're so far out of reach. And then we get away from our own principles and our own conservative ways by watching this unfold and not actually sticking to it and saying, you know what, let's eliminate it. We need to scale back. What can we do to eliminate these groups from continuously advertising, in the name of, this project and this fund and this advisory? No, let's get back to black and white. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of resources and money into pools that we don't need to be swimming in anymore. let's let's thin the herd a little bit and get back to business, because we're doing so much more than we actually really need to, and we're not actually doing the business of the people. and
Mhm.
and that's kind of where we're at, where it's like, wow, it's so out of hand that I don't even they it's almost impossible to an effective commission, to see all the things from the top down and give your all, because there's so much going on at
Now,
one
are you leading
time.
the charge? Are you leading the charge on this for the school, or is it somebody, other board members who are inputting as well?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the board. I know that they were like, okay, let's be realistic. We all sat and did speak about it. We're saying we're going to be realistic about this. What can we do? The squeaky wheel, gets the grease, kind of thing. To be honest, I think we all kind of felt like, wow, this is kind of all out of our hands. Jackie Rosario gave us a lot of hope. At least she did for me. I can't speak for everybody else. She gave me hope, and that, hey, we got to pursue this. I'm aware that there were several letters written to the county commission about um, uh, recalling that and putting it back on the agenda for further discussion and evaluation. I appreciate everybody who did write a letter in support of that decision to recall that. But right now, I think the school's like, listen, we got to continue with business as usual. I haven't let it rest. I'm still very much involved in seeing where this can go. Um, and what we can do. It's an opportunity for a discussion for the future to perhaps maybe look at legislation or look at ordinances, things like that, because this isn't going to go away. And we do it one time, we're going to do it a lot of other more times. Where's the next one going to come up? Because that's just where we're headed with all of the opioid crisis and the fentanyl things that we're going through. This isn't the first rodeo. It's not going to be our first situation. But the board, is moving on with business as usual. We have kids to oversee. We have to get these kids, safe and sound. The resource officer is sensational. Big credit to Indian River County Sheriff Department because he's got it. Our resource officer is amazing. And duty as usual for him. And the school is like, okay, they have kind of a little bit of a relationship with the incoming CEO of the detox center. They're willing to collaborate and say, hey, if something comes up, we're going to let you know, let us know. We'll do an internal in-house collaboration. But all of that could have been averted if a workshop and professional courtesy was extended so we can have this conversation and do the business of the people and do it right, so that we didn't have to have these conversations and then have to do it backwards. So the school is going to continue with resilience. We've already shown that in our numbers, in our education, in the growth that we've had, and in numbers and families. So, that's our biggest concern. And I think that, the admin team is doing a sensational job, really just making sure that we just keep it pushing, and we're going to continue doing the work for the kids and keep them as safe and sound as possible, and make sure that the parents even feel supported in any capacity. I know that they're incredibly concerned. I'm a parent at the school, and I share the sentiment, but I also recognize that there's still so much opportunity and challenges like this, and I look forward to those opportunities as well. So,
Mhm.
where
So
we're at.
you did bring up an interesting topic in your concern about the expansion of government. Since you sit on CSAC and a number of people are less than favorable about not the job that they're doing as much as the fact that it exists and the
Sure.
function that it really is. It seems to have gone from a state mandate to provide extra services for children. It's gone to like everything else, another bucket of money. How do we water the community with this bucket of money?
But
And
that
whoever
isn't
comes in there gets.
a state mandate. They're not mandated to have CSAC.
I
They
thought
are
that
not.
was a mandate
Nope.
from the state.
Nope. Brevard County had an opportunity to have CSAC and they rejected it. Brevard County does not have a CSAC.
So I think there is a mandate, and that was in 1998, but it's never been revised. It's never been relooked at. And so in 1998, I could say, okay, sure, CSAC would have made sense. In 2025, I don't want to. I'm not speaking for the work that county staff does and committee members do, because it is a lot of work. I sit on the grant advisory committee, and it is a lot of work. I give in a solid week 8 hours, 10 hours a day for 4 days, um, listening to all the nonprofits, deliberate and, give us 3 to 5 minutes of their time to explain quickly what their application really should say. I review all the applications. I look at them. I make sure I study them before I have to go read, grade those rubrics. And it's taxing. It's a lot of work. These nonprofits, so many of them are sensational, and they really are putting in a lot of work. But can I say that it's justified to take $20 out of your pocket without your discretion and allocate it to where I think it should go? No. Essentially with CSAC, again, it's not something that is looked at and controlled by the powers that be to question any of it. It's just, a lot of, I think, continuous approval with no oversight and governance into how much are we really approving, how how many of these nonprofits are really okay without taxpayer dollars. A lot of them do receive philanthropic monies from other places, and they do very well, and they're thriving. And um, could we allocate county funds in a different way, taxpayer dollars a different way? Sure. I think there's opportunity there. 1 million, 2 million, $3 million at the end of the day, it is taxpayer money. um, and I can say that it's justifiable, to take funds from the taxpayer without really giving them the opportunity to decide where that money goes. Um, Not today, not with the cost of living, not with so much going on already and families already struggling immensely. And being a realtor, I see it. And people call me all the time. We're getting kicked out of our homes. At the state, I get a lot of elderly individuals that call me telling me they're going to be destitute, and we're taking nickel and diming everybody from all avenues. Um, so no, I don't think that's okay. Actually, it's not okay.
I
And
agree with you. I'm sure Joanne does as well.
Oh,
it's not okay.
100%, because I think, if you wanted to help the tax, I mean, it started out at $150,000, and now we're up to 4+ million and increasing. They want to keep increasing it.
Yeah.
And when I was running for county commission, they were trying to turn the CSAC into a trust and put it on the ballot. And I was like, that's totally wrong, and it was for a 12-year plan. So that meant
Mhm.
once it became a trust, you wouldn't be able to take it off without voting on it. And who's going to vote against it on a
Sure.
75-word bill, explanation
Mhm.
on your, and it would have increased with these millage increases 3 times over those 12 years without taxpayers being involved at all. And that's what
Mhm.
scares me about this, is we've seen it grow and grow and grow. And then, like you're saying, they have too many committees that they really don't have oversight on, and they keep just agreeing with the committees that come up. They don't ask questions. They don't say, hey, especially when it comes to kids. If they're dealing with kids, show me actual facts. Don't show me this PowerPoint that says, well, this is what we found in this data. This is what we found in that data. Well,
Right.
what's your data? Aren't you supposed to be working with some so and so? Let's say Vero Beach Elementary. How many students did you pick up in your program at Vero Beach Elementary, and what was their starting grade? How are these students doing? To me, that's proof. But they're not giving us that proof. They're just using all these datas and metrics from other data companies that pick up data, and then giving it to you and saying we have to invest in our children. But when you look at it, the nation just lowered the bar for grades, because we had to do a sliding scale because nobody was doing a good job. So now our schools are on a sliding scale because really our kids' A's are not really true A's like they used to be,
Mhm.
because they lowered the bar. And I'll give you an example, the Learning Alliance. I cannot stand the Learning Alliance, because if you own a company and they say, we're going to do this performance for you, third grade reading at third grade level, all the way to sixth grade. I worked in the school district. I can't tell you how many fifth graders went to sixth grade that were below reading. And they've been doing that for 10 years. And then they wanted to bring it up to now hire us so that we could work from kindergarten through 12th grade. It's like, no, 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 no. I hired you to do a job. And over the 10 years, our grades have lowered. They have not gotten higher, so
There,
low
yeah.
nationally that they put us all on a sliding scale. So our kids are not really at the A that I would say we should be at. So why do we still have Learning Alliance, who
Well,
sucks up
that's
so much money?
That's exactly right. And so one of the things I always say, and it's buzz terms, right? And it's just like, linguistics. Um, and I always say you've got a bulletproof linguistics, because, they talk about bridging the gaps. But what I hear is prolonging the suffering. Let's not bridge any gaps. Let's teach people how to cross a bridge and get over and be self-sufficient, self-reliant individuals. And so as a sub-grant committee member, I would have to say that the grant committee does a very good job questioning and interrogating and really, really, really asking some hard questions to these nonprofits. So much so that I think they take away, and as harsh as it can be, they take away like, I need to think about that. I need to think about how I'm looking at my 990s or how I'm supposed to do this or do that and all the things. So, I do clap for a lot of the sub-grant committee members, because even though we come from so many different places and different backgrounds and different viewpoints, collectively we do a very good job at like asking the hard questions. But whatever happens to it after the fact and it going to other committees, I don't know. I don't go to all of them. And to your point, you brought up the Learning Alliance, and one of the data metrics that I looked at was just like, over time, and not just them, I don't want to just isolate them, but over time, when you do some of the math, numbers really aren't changing. And I encourage a lot of people to look like, data doesn't have to go up to show that you're doing a good job. Sometimes when data comes down, that's a good job. It tells me that people need your program less and less because they're becoming more and more independent. Show me that data. Show me how many kids don't need the program because they're off on their own, because they can do it. Because your program was so effective that they were able to become independent readers and go into the science fair and become writers and do the things that your program said it was going to do. How many kids left and never came back?
So you bring up a great question. In this process, does the subcommittee or the CSAC committee, whoever would be doing it, do they present them with a challenge that you claim you're going to do this? How are you going to measure what you're claiming, and when and how are you going to come back and show that you've actually achieved what you're claiming there?
Right. So honestly, county staff actually does a lot of workshops and teaches them how to grant write, teaches them what metrics really look like, teaches them how to evaluate those outcomes. So you have measures and outcomes. How do you measure that? Collecting data, and then how do you articulate those measures into words so that they become measurable outcomes, right? And county staff teaches a lot of, they have these workshops and they invite all the nonprofits to do that so that they can perfect these grant applications. That's essentially what's happening there.
So basically, they're telling them how to better game the system.
Yeah.
I mean,
not quite. That's a little bit harsh, but basically they're saying we're gonna show you how to make your application more attractive. But the question is, what system is in place to evaluate? So we're going to give you $3,000. What are you going to achieve with that? And next time you got to come back and show what you've achieved against what you promised to achieve and the measures.
Right. And is it going to be real raw data, or is it going to be another PowerPoint page?
Right. And so some of those things, I mean, as a sub-grant committee member, our job, and I take it serious, is to go and dig and I know what they did before, and okay, here we are. And then know that information. We know a lot of things. We study it, a good sub-grant committee member is going to do that. Now, the other part of that is, I think, to take it a step further, one of the things that I say is we appropriate CSAC funds willy-nilly. There is no reason or rhyme on how we say they get this much money. We try not to exceed 30% of their funding ask. We're not trying to give them all the money, right? But there really isn't a measurement that says, okay, this is how much money, for this, because of this rubric, we're going to give this is how much money is allocated. Like, there's no reason or rhyme in how you do that. It's just like, oh, they've asked for 640,000 and their program is this robust and this much, and this is how much money they need and don't have, and all the things. All right, let's give them 300.
And do you know why that happens? Because when you go shopping, you say, I need something. I'm going to look and see where I can find it. In this case, the county is not saying we have specific needs. We need to find a way to meet those needs. The county is saying, we got a bucket of money. Come in and make a pitch for a need that you're going to fill, and we'll throw the money at you. And you can go away and create a need, find yourself a need, create it, build it up, make a pitch, we'll give you money, and then you can keep coming back to the bucket forever and we won't stop it. They're not filling a need; they are searching for needs.
No, and
Right. And
most
so,
companies where you apply for grant, they usually say like, we have a $500 grant. We have a $10,000 grant. We have a $2,000 grant. The county's just saying, pitch me and we'll decide how much money you get. And if they had stabilization and what you can get for a grant, we wouldn't be at $4 million. And people wouldn't, nonprofits wouldn't be saying, go to Indian River County, you'll get money there. Because that's what they're saying. They won't go to Brevard County because Brevard County doesn't support CSAC. They don't have a CSAC. They go to St. Lucie County. They don't get as much money as they get from Indian River County. We have a reputation of giving money away, and that attracts more and more nonprofits, and it's not good for the taxpayers.
And since we're talking about the structure itself, look at who's on that committee, who's on those committees. You've got the sheriff is on the committee. He needs money. He wants money. He should be scrutinizing what's happening on CSAC and saying, let's not give those $4 million to them. Let's get a new police car. And you've got Dr. Morris on there. The quintessential example of what's wrong with CSAC is the county is taking our tax money and then they're giving it to the Learning Alliance, who's then giving it to the school district, who is their own taxing authority. We don't need to that's called money laundering. You don't need to launder money through an NGO in order to give money to the school. If you want to give money to the school, give it to the school. But more importantly, let the school tax you. The school is taxing us. They got the authority to go for any amount of money that we're willing to pay. They don't need another $300,000 or $500,000 to be laundered through the Learning Alliance. There are a lot of things that don't make financial sense, but that's the way they work. And then you add on top of that, there are a lot of people on the CSAC committee who are also getting money from the CSAC committee.
Right, for their own NGOs.
Yeah, I would definitely say that one of the things that makes it a little difficult to palate is the conflict of interest that exists within our own committees, and not to their fault, but you should be able to self-govern is kind of the mantra, and I don't think that that's accurate, that's fair, or even right. I'm one of the very few people that don't have any significant conflicts, and when there was one that I thought,
you're one of the few.
Very few. Yes.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Well, that's because you don't have an NGO.
Well, start yourself an NGO. I know one of the committee members started himself an NGO, and he got a few $1,000s last year.
I mean, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. I mean, and that's how
the bucket leaks.
It does. And here's the thing, look, at the end of the day, my job isn't to criticize the particular nonprofit. As a citizen serving on that committee, I'm looking at it to expand my horizon and to see, I want to know what these nonprofits are doing, because some of them really are just so magnificent. But at the end of the day, it's not the nonprofit's fault.
No,
it's not
the same as I said about the sheriff. The sheriff comes and he wants a lot more money to do a lot of things, probably good things.
Sure.
So he's doing his job. The oversight is somebody else's job, and the county commissioners on down to CSAC and everyone else, no one wants to do oversight because nobody is your friend when you have said no to them.
Right.
And everyone's your friend when you say yes.
Sure.
Yeah, no one wants to say no. Everyone wants to say yes.
I mean, and that's one of the things you brought up a good point. I think that with the sheriff being, as a, constitutionally elected individual, a lot of people are like, oh my God, he's suing the county commissioners. Well, that's actually procedural, because he can be removed by the governor and the governor only. We know this, right? Not everybody does know that, but also a lot of people are not aware that the sheriff has complete autonomy over his own budget. Unlike a nonprofit, if I give a nonprofit money for crayons and they go spend it on markers, they're in violation of the nonprofit rule. If we give the sheriff $1 for a pen and he goes and spends it on a car, nobody can say anything because he has complete and full autonomy over his own budget. And so I think that's why, the commission is like, we've given you this money for that reason. And now what? Now, I'm not opposed to the idea of giving, the deputies more money or any of those things. Absolutely not. I mean, goodness, our city is expanding and it's growing rapid rates. I mean, I'm in, North County, and the police presence here is very heavy now. And, and for many reasons, it's a lot of crime going on right now. And so there's that. But if you look at CSAC and you're like, wait a minute, do we really need to spend that much money on nonprofits who should be doing their nonprofit due diligence and looking for money and volunteers the way nonprofits should, not
Right.
at the back, not off the backs and skin off of the taxpayer? In 1998, when it was a smaller fund, I could see that being justifiable because it's 1998. But in 2025, I think that there's a better way to allocate those resources. If you're going to take it and make these unilateral decisions without the taxpayer having any say so in how you take their $1 or $20 million, then that's where the responsibility comes from. And who's actually really looking at that? Who's actually saying no? Everybody is just like, in all situations, like so much rubber stamping. And I don't agree with that. I don't like that. And it just doesn't feel good. It's not right. And so it's just not right. And the children, I mean, gosh, when we my first year on CSAC, when I was in opposition to so many of these, and I did not give consent to a lot of things, and I said no, and I stuck to it. Had I understood the process a little better right out the gate, I would have probably said no a lot faster, quicker, understood it. And then more money would have been returned to the general fund. But that particular year, about $128,000 went back to general fund. And when I went back to it, I said, can you give the taxpayer a refund, especially those in 32958 and 4A who don't see services? It was in my first year that I asked CSAC for a GIS report. I said, I would like to know where these services are being rendered and who's actually getting them. And it was that conversation during my sub-grant committee meeting that opened up the eyes, and they were like, wow, there really is no presence in North County. None. It
Wow.
really did. There was no presence at all. I mean, it was a very, very uh, vacant piece of land there with no services rendered. And most of them were coming out of Central and South County. All of those
I mean,
nonprofits.
who's the county commissioner in North County who should be noticing and raising that issue, and doing that oversight to make sure that they're getting proper
So
representation?
I live in District 2, and I believe it's Commissioner Fletcher. Um, and for a very short period, he was the liaison there, and then it was Moss, I think him, and then I've had, we had Joe Ehrman, all the things. But I raised that question because I can't. In my first year in CSAC, I realized that there really wasn't enough data for me as a member to say or to justify that I even understood the idea, the vision of what this is supposed to be. So I asked a lot of hard questions, some of it, due to my own ignorance, of the process, but nevertheless, it were questions that I had because I'm coming out from the outside. And I think that I do represent an area of our county that goes unspoken for often. And then, obviously Fellsmere, right? And so now they have the idea that they want to put in a big community service building, library-esque structure in Fellsmere to bring services to Fellsmere. And while that sounds, sensational on paper, again, we're taxing an entire county for Fellsmere to have access to something that the rest of the county is not going to ever use, right? And so that's a different situation going on there that I see could be structured very differently. Mm. But again, the taxpayer at the brunt of all of these expenditures, and when does it stop? It's just such a big beast now, and it's just too much government. Government has grown so much, and too fast, too much at the same time. How do you stop the bleeding? And asking questions and saying no more often, and understanding that like overdevelopment is a big problem, you know? And in a situation like this, my rationale for something, just as an example, with the building going up and, proposed for Fellsmere, is that why don't you charge the big old development that's going out there, that's going to house thousands of new residents out there, charge them. Brevard County, they charge a CDD fee. It's a community, basically an community impact fee. It's a bonds program. The big developers who want this land, they acquire the land and they basically lease it from the county over time. And so then they charge like an HOA fee. Then the resident will also, you know, be charged a CDD fee, and it's up for, you know, 30, 35 years or 10, 15, whatever it is. And then eventually that falls off. You don't pay that anymore. You go back, you just pay your HOA fees, but it goes to the community that you want to live in. It gives the resident who wants to live in that area the chance to pay for a service that they want in that area, not the entire county. A county, a humongous portion of the county, it's never going to go to Fellsmere to access this community center. And
You got my
you know,
vote.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the CDDs because a lot of
Right.
people, when they buy into them, they're not told the entire truth of the CDD.
They're not. You're right about that.
And they take advantage of those people. And that's
so the
why I'm not
CDD,
in
because it's
favor
a
of that.
bond program, it's a bond program. But the idea is, right, let's say it's not a CDD fee, but the idea is lease it from the county or take it from the county, hold the county to it. Don't hold the individual resident to that. Don't burden the resident for something that they're not asking for or wanting, just like waste management. You know how many calls I get about that? Jiminy Crickets. I mean, you know, it's in, and I get it. It's a reasonable argument because, you know, people don't mind paying for a service they actually want, but if you're paying or getting taxed for a service you're not getting, who wants to do that? Who wants to pay for something they're not getting? Nobody. But when you make unilateral decisions that don't keep the taxpayer in mind, and you're basically no longer become a public servant. You're not serving the public at all when you make decisions like that. And so then it's a trickle down effect that it's almost like, how do you stop this snowball effect? And it makes me so sad because I see it from all angles. I'm selling real estate in this county. I'm seeing people trying to make ends meet. I'm seeing people at the state becoming destitute because they can't pay their escrow, their insurances and taxes. I have senior citizens that are getting evicted, and I send them over to community service in the county, or I introduce them to the SHIP program, or I say, I liaise, I just send them to a source. But at the end of the day, that for me, being all the things, right, all the hats that I wear, it's almost like this weight that I'm like, wow, like, do we have these conversations?
Yeah, I think what they should do is, if your town or your area, so if Fellsmere needs a library or something like that, they should have a ballot choice and let the residents vote on that ballot. And that tax for a tax that would increase it for that library, and have a bill that says, okay, the taxes will take place until the library is paid off, and then when the library is paid off, you can drop those taxes.
Have you ever seen taxes drop?
No, they don't. They don't drop. But
They don't ever drop.
But if you wanted to do that, you can do it that way as well, because it affects the community. But I'm not a fan of those CDDs. I think.
Oh yeah, a lot of people aren't, and I understand why they wouldn't be. But the concept and principle, right? The principle there is like, do right by the people. And, the imposition there to say that, okay, we're going to do this because it sounds good and it's fluffy and it's beautiful, and we got, grant money from here, there, and everywhere.
Oh, what happened? We lost her.
I think the government just cut her off.
Yeah,
But some interesting things she's been saying, which we know, the idea that there are organizations that aren't part of the government that are just sitting behind closed doors, behind curtains, and they're getting money, they're doing things, and God bless them if they can get an individual to donate to that function, that's great. But if you've got a non-governmental organization that receives private donor funds to do some kind of presumably altruistic thing, then the government should not be adding money to that fund. If it's a good,
well, we shouldn't be asking.
It's
government.
a perfect thing.
Yeah,
well, it's a perfect thing. If you've got people saying, I think it's a good idea, I'm going to give my money to it. That's how it should work. The government, the government shouldn't say, well, we're going to take money from people in South County and give it to you because you've got some people who want it, but they can't afford it.
Right. And so
right.
and
That's
that's
how
the
NGOs
idea.
work. It should be that way.
That's right. Hmm.
Yeah, and then get people to volunteer for your programs. Do the things. If you believe in your effort and your program, then you know what, you're gonna get people to buy in, right? Listen, it's not easy and it's not supposed to be easy. Being an NGO is not supposed to be easy because it's doing the work of the people, right?
Well, you're
You're boots
sacrificing
on the ground.
time. You're doing it for
100%.
free a lot of times,
I mean, I feel like I'm already an NGO. I'm a walking NGO. I I do
You
all
getting
these
kickbacks
things. I'm like,
too?
oh my gosh. I mean, literally, I do it for free, right? So, and that's how it's supposed to be. And people, I have people ask me, they're like, why do you do all these things? Like, do you get paid? I'm like, absolutely not. If I got paid, then it would cheapen the experience for me. Why? Because it's coming from a public service standpoint, right? And it's, the ability to be able to have hard conversations, sit at the table, and know that we come from different backgrounds. But if at the end of the day, I can shake your hand and we can agree to something, not all things, then it's still a win to have those conversations. We're ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I don't think that the conversation has to change a little bit because we go in attacking and guns blazing, and who wants to have a conversation when you've got your nails and teeth into them before they even said hello to you. So some of those aspects, especially in local government, can be a little intimidating because people are so passionate and it's personal.
Mhm.
But we need to know that it really isn't personal. It's just that we have to remind people who they are, where they're standing, and why they're here to serve. And if you see that they're not serving and they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, then that's when you know, don't elect the incumbent. That's just how it goes. And that's the thing. When government gets too big, it's out of hand, and nobody actually sees what's going on because it's hard to put your eyes on one thing when a million things are happening at the same time
Well, and they structure it that way. There is no
on
such thing
purpose.
as an NGO per se, because if the government is paying any part of
Mhm.
it, it's a geo.
It's a government
The only end
organization,
thing about it, the
exactly. You're
only end
right.
thing about it is not it's not non-governmental. It's a
It's
non-accountable government organization. And
you know
the USAID was the perfect example of that. They take money, they slip it out the back door, they give it to other people.
hmm
They those people aren't accountable to the taxpayers. They're accountable to the people who are giving the money out.
Other
And there's a
donors,
little
yeah.
cabal of people, a cabal of people doing all kinds of fun things. The greatest thing in the greatest thing in the world is to spend other people's money. It's a lot of fun. You make a lot of friends. It doesn't cost or hurt.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
hurts other
wow.
people,
Yeah,
Yes, it
you're
and that's
does.
right.
what
You're
that's what.
absolutely
Yeah.
right.
And so
It's
with all the things, detox center is something that's very near and dear because I love our North County charter family. I love the charter school model. And I've been there, 3 generations. All three of my kids have attended the school, still do. And honestly, like Indian River County is such a gem. We really do live in such a beautiful place.
mhm.
There's still this air of southern hospitality when you really go looking for it. The farms, the citrus groves, all of that history is so rich and so beautiful. And I understand why it took so long for them to want to expand. I don't know if Indian River County is so expandable the way they've done it, but here we are, and every challenge is an opportunity to grow and to do something better. And when we reframe the way we look at tough times and look at it as opportunities, then our community becomes stronger, and as a unit we get to empower and grow from those things. So I look forward to seeing what comes of it. I work for an incredible representative that is kind of in the background, always looking to help me out a little bit, and teaches me so much what he's learning. And I'm incredibly blessed to be able to sit down and pick up that phone at the office and talk to all walks of life, all parties, you name it, they call. And it's definitely a win-win for me when I know what side of the fence they're on, and we get to meet at the middle somewhere, somehow. And people just want to be heard. They don't want to be told how to live. They don't want to be told what to do. They just want you to hear them out, and they don't want your
Mhm.
opinion. And that's what I've learned sitting at that desk answering that phone. People want to be heard. They want to know that they're valid in the way they think and feel, regardless of whether I think or feel the same way. And it's getting back to being human and understanding that attached to a dollar is a life, is a heartbeat. There's something emotional attached to that. Money has feelings, folks. And it does. And if you talk about it like it's just going to grow forever, then there's no value to it anymore. And that's just how I see it. When I look at a budget, when I get to review school district budgets, and I look at sheriff budgets and county budgets, that's people, that's livelihood built into numbers.
Yeah.
And people
No, no,
forget that.
you work for Robbie Brackett, and
Mhm.
is there anything specific that you'd like to share about what that job is like? And in particular, I think about that the issue which has come up with Schools of Hope, which has blown up
I
and become a
wanted,
big problem, and a law that was passed, and maybe we can get Robbie to
I
champion
definitely,
the review of that law.
yeah.
you
And
know,
does that affect other charter schools? Like you were talking about the concern of losing students because you're a charter school, the Schools of Hope wouldn't affect you, or could it affect you as well?
so right now we're in discussions of that. We as far as me and in the school about the whole school, the School of Hope thing. It will affect us to some capacity. I don't want to speak for Robbie at all. I certainly encourage you guys to have a conversation with him about it, because on the legislative side, I'm not 100% part of the process the way he and the legislative aide are. And so if I had more information to render, I would definitely give that to you guys. But I don't, because the charter school and I haven't had an opportunity to sit down and actually talk about that, because it's just it's kind of in the air, and it's very, very, I don't say very new, but very still new and preliminary. But it will affect us for sure. Absolutely.
Now
Wow.
you're
Yeah.
sort of close to Fellsmere, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that's one of the areas where it's an opportunity zone where they might be able to go in and plant uh,
Yeah.
a whole new building. Although I think they don't really want to build buildings; those are expensive. They really want to infiltrate existing schools, which would be school district schools, and just take over
Yes.
part of that and let the school district pay for everything. But
Yeah.
that will have an
So
impact. That's a competitor for you.
it is. It's a competitor, but at the same time, though, like if you're going to be the competition, then there's no competition. At the end of the day, we are still brick and mortar. I'm not afraid of that, and I love that. You know what? Families get an option to choose. Families get the choice, and that's the whole point. I mean, welcome to American excelism, where the choice is yours to decide how you want to educate and raise your children. And when we look at education as competition, then we're kind of coming away from the whole concept, the whole idea. you know on the business aspect, I see why they would be concerned, but on an education standpoint, I'm not an educator, but I also know that as a mother and an American mother here, I if I get the choice to go to charter, public, private, ups and downs, whatever I want to do, I have that option. And so it's when you start to politicize the children, that's when I have an issue.
Hmm.
When that I don't agree with whatsoever. When you try to take what you think is a vulnerability and exploit that, whether that's because it's a socioeconomic area that is a little underdeveloped, is struggling a little bit more. When we're going to throw good causes at them, you're defeating your own purpose there, and you're not actually helping them. You hinder them by doing too much. Teach them how to fish. Teach them self-sufficiency, how to become effective members of society. And that's not always throwing a dollar at them. Sometimes it's teaching them how to go fish and show them, here's a fishing pole, let's go.
Yep.
And then go and do it. And a lot of that is built into this package, because really what is it really saying, though, when you do these things, when you politicize education, healthcare, all those things, what you're breaking down a society from becoming independent, free thinkers, free moving individuals, and you become more and more dependent on government making your
Hmm.
decisions, right?
Yeah.
And
Stronger
so
society is a stronger nation.
absolutely. And I even, I even with my own son, I always tell him, I'm like, be strong, stay true to your values, and you don't let anyone pivot you from that, because, we need strong men in our society as well. I mean, that's the backbone of
Yes, we
our
do.
communities. So, all of it has an implication and affects us at a nuclear level. So I certainly look forward to having that conversation about it, and always making sure that we stay true to our mission and vision as a charter school, but also making sure that we exercise and remember what American excelism is, and why we are the greatest nation to exist. And I think that is because we have the freedom and we have the choice to make those decisions for our children. And I refuse. I don't wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, gee whiz, I cannot wait for the Department of Education to teach my children about culture." Like, no, it's not gonna
And
happen.
I agree. I agree with your idea. It should also. There's a group of. It's actually women. The Democratic Women's Club comes in and wears a T-shirt to the school board readings that says meetings and says um, education champions, public education champions. And as I pointed out couple months ago, when I was speaking there, I said, I'm not a champion for public education. I'm a champion for student education. And public education is the institution. The institution is one way to train and educate our students. Charter schools are another way. Homeschools are another way. We want to be champions for the students and not champions for the institution. So I think you're absolutely right. Although in your case, if they were to come into your area, if they could get a half of a school building and have no cost for the actual education that they're providing, then they can go ahead and leverage that and do a lot of things to interest your existing families to move from there to their school, because they got a lot of extra money that you don't have because they're not
Mhm.
paying infrastructure expenses.
Right, because
So there's a
everything
bit of a
they're
threat.
getting is from your school.
Yes, and so it's it's an infection, um, and that's how I see that. It's an imposition. It's a detox center. So it's planting itself in an existing situation, and there's no symbiosis there. It's not symbiotic there. You have two very separate ideas and concepts going into one building, and that's just not how this is supposed to work. If you want to be something, be it on your own and go do that by yourself. That's how I look at it. But I definitely champion and make sure that you know that there's a strong voice wherever I'm at, because again, I don't do the bullying tactics. And especially when I think that government is trying to basically infiltrate a family, or the way the nuclear family is supposed to structure itself. You live your life and you do what you're supposed to do for your family, but government needs to
Move out of the
excuse
way.
yourself, get out of the way. I mean, even in
Yeah.
healthcare, right? They just get in the way of providers. Let us do our job. Get out of the way. And
And that's a good point. Like my chiropractor, she doesn't take insurance anymore because there's
mm-mm,
too much red tape and it doesn't allow her to really take care of her clients.
no,
So
absolutely.
she doesn't take insurance anymore. And
I don't blame these providers.
and I pay her for it because she does an
Yeah.
excellent job. She
Yeah.
has the freedom to do her job.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where I'm at with that, where it's like when you feel it almost, what you feel it when they're encroaching on your lifestyle, your way of life, and the way you think and how you feel. I mean, that's just government just trying to just get in the way. It's nefarious, actually. And it's unfortunate because they really do prey on the most vulnerable parts of our society. But really, it's our job to show up with grace, I think, compassion, and meet them with understanding for the individuals who are being preyed on, because some people do think that that's the way to go. And I always say, I challenged you to reframe the way you see this right now and see it from my point of view, even just for a minute. And they do. Some people do. They come over to the other side and they're like, wow, okay. And I'm like, hey, because there's a million ways to do something. But there's usually one right way to do it. So,
So Susan, you since we were talking about oversight, you are involved with the Taxpayers Alliance, and what can you tell us about that?
well, Taxpayer Association, doing pretty good job, I would say, with the direction of Lance Lunsford being the president. You know, he has a lot of big ideas, Lance does, and he brings them forward to the board, and they've work on several things. I think our board is really awesome in that it's so diverse. Everyone, different age ranges, but also different capacities and involvement. So I think it's a very robust board. And right now, we have, it's kind of like a little bit of a downtime for us, a little down season for us, but we ramp up in the spring, and at the direction, that Lance takes us in, and we kind of like go over that. But we've been involved. I mean, he's led us into being involved in, sheriff budget, county budget, school district budget. We meet with with, constitutional all the time. We see that they present, and it's been a bigger voice. I think Taxpayer has definitely grown in its presence since I started. People know who they are. And I'd like to see them kind of do a little more on the taxpayer side, and a little less, in my opinion, of course, on you know, just having conversations, mostly like, okay, explaining what we see, what's happening for the taxpayers. And, right now, CSAC was a conversation, hospital district is a conversation, and all the taxing districts that really influence, the dollar for the individual. So, right now it's pretty smooth sailing. I enjoy it. I've learned a lot being on there. I've had great exposure, and I can't, I don't have much to say about it other than, we're there. I encourage everyone to come to our luncheons the first Friday of every month at the Vero Beach Yacht Club at 12 o'clock. $25 to get in. You don't have to pay if you don't want to eat, and that's my plug.
Good
So,
plug.
with the Taxpayers Association, are they participating in some of, like, they're having conversations about CSAC and,
Mhm.
these conversations that they're having, are they going and participating and like going to the county commission and talking about how they feel about CSAC? Are they going to these organizations, these areas, like to the hospital district and showing up? Because I know when Jordan was there remember Jordan?
Yeah, Stuart. Yeah.
Yes, Jordan Stewart. He joined me and several other people when we were fighting the CSAC trust. And he showed up with some taxpayers, and we went to the municipalities, and where we were, the Taxpayers Association was fighting it right alongside us. So
Yeah.
are they doing that in this Taxpayer Association as well as having those conversations?
Well, we have the conversations among ourselves, at board meetings and discussions about how to go about it. I'm aware that, the executive board, they have, collectively, have written letters expressing whatever concerns may be, whether it be Four Corners or if it was, whatever the topic was, I know that Lance does, attend a lot of these, like public, forums, and he goes to meetings and he goes to the county commission meetings. I know that he does that. I can't speak for the rest. I don't know because I'm not personally there because obviously, I'm working, but I would definitely encourage you guys to reach out to them, at least Lance, to have that and see if he's doing that. I can't speak for him. I don't know 100%. I don't want to misspeak either. But he's certainly very abreast to the concerns in the community. He's on it. He definitely knows what's going on.
That's
I
good
will
to
give him
know.
that. Yeah, he's on it. He knows, and he's like sharp. So I definitely encourage you guys to reach out to him for sure.
You know
Now,
how everybody's feeling about DeSantis wanting to get rid of the tax on homes, on property
Yeah.
tax. How do you guys
Mhm.
feel about that?
So we haven't actually had a conversation about that I'm aware of. But you know, I guess I question where are we going to get the revenue from? It's a $4 billion chunk of money that goes, to Department of Education, blah blah blah. So like, what's the plan? I don't disagree. I do like the idea of, not taxing somebody on a home that they already own, especially our seniors. My goodness. But um so what are we going to do with with not having the revenue? What's the plan B? What's the pivot? What's the scope? What's the means to an end? And like, what's on the other side of that proposal?
Well, yeah, because I don't think we'll lose all of our revenue. I think, not everybody is going to be in that non-tax
Right.
bracket,
Yeah.
so we're still going to have homeowners that are being taxed because they have mortgages and things of
Sure.
that sort. But
Yeah.
especially for the retirees or the people that, the people that have retired, the older people that have to struggle with their taxes going up. And like you were saying earlier, they're getting kicked out of their homes because they're on a fixed budget.
Yeah.
And now they can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely on that front, I would love to see that for them. I mean, my parents included, right? I see them, how they struggle even, but it makes it impossible to really live that American dream, right? It makes it almost impossible to be that blue collar family that just,
Yeah.
wants to have their family and own a home, right? So, oh, do we have a neighbor back there? We have a guest.
I think he's being called to dinner. Are you being called to dinner?
My wife came through the room and she's making noises in the background.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. I was like, oh my gosh,
Well,
but
So you did mention that the sheriff's budget, which has been a hot topic. How
yeah.
deep does the Taxpayer Alliance get into
Well, we had
understanding what's
him.
going on in that budget?
Well, they had him present. We had a special workshop. We had a special workshop with him. We had one independently with the county commission, and then we had one with school board. And we pick the chairs for each one of those entities, and they present their budget, a preliminary budget, usually. And he did come in and he presented. I wasn't actually there for that particular meeting because of work obligations, but he did. He was there and sit down. We they give their talk and their spiel. They tell us what it is and why, what's motivating them to ask and all the things. And then the board is sitting there. They ask questions and we dig down and all the things. We try to remain as neutral as possible regarding what questions we ask and how we ask them, because if whether I gathered whether we vote for him or don't vote for him, like him or don't, the questions are still the questions, and there's a populace that's waiting for us to ask those questions, and that's the main focus. Um, and so the board does a really good job of making sure that those hard questions are being asked. So I do appreciate that about them, and they don't hold back. They definitely don't hold back, and
that's good.
they do tough it out with the individuals, and respectfully, professionally, they deliver it. So TPA does a really good job about making it at the forefront and getting ahead of it before it gets too hot. So I appreciate that. I mean, I've learned so much being on TPA. So I definitely encourage you guys to come out, ask questions, call Lance anytime. I mean, I'm sure he'll be more than amenable to have the conversation. Yeah, he's definitely on it.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I was querying him the other night at the after the REC meeting, and we were talking specific about. Well, the sheriff came to the REC meeting and presented,
Okay.
as well as the county had
Yeah.
the rebuttal. But so it was a hot topic, and
It is a hot topic.
I've been exhorting the county that they need to have a lot more in-depth understanding of what comprises that budget, so that by the time he comes to present it, somebody there has to know that real well, and they have to be able to understand why are you getting more than a cost of living increase, and there may be a good reason for it, but they should know before June. They should know in December
Yeah.
what's coming through and why the increase and what it's for.
And I don't know what their fiscal years look like and how they line up or don't line up. I don't know. But it kind of comes back to that, doing your due diligence, as an elected official. That these deadlines are approaching. You're going to have the conversations. So get ahead of it, and have the tough conversations among each other to understand and hash that out before it becomes a complete circus. And then the taxpayers, I believe, my opinion anyways, feel like, does anybody know what's going on? Like,
Right.
what's going on here, right? Because we're kind of like at the end of the straw with that one, and it's not okay. I mean, my hat's off to all these individuals, honestly, because, again, like I said, we're ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and it's, not an easy task, and you're criticized no matter what you do. The scrutiny is like top tier. But it comes with the job. And in some ways, I can sit here and say, okay, all these things are easy peasy, we can resolve it. But again, they become emotional about the dollars because you have deputies that need a raise, you want to keep your people, but it's not just about salary, and I'm fully aware that not all deputies leave because of a salary. There's a lot of other motivating factors why somebody would want to pivot from being here. I mean, as a young mom being here, I would say that if I didn't have children and it wasn't a quiet, safe place to raise my children, I wouldn't be here. If there's no industry, I couldn't. I mean, in all honesty, like, it is very hard to make a living here. I mean, at one point I had 3 jobs, even working at the state, because it just wasn't it, just not enough. Everything started getting more expensive, with the mouths to feed and all the things. And this is not a woe me. I'm Deborah, right? Like, we do things and we make sure we get it done. But if I'm feeling that way, God bless. I mean, you have families, intact families who are having a hard time, you know?
Mhm.
And
And that
you
affects the
know,
community too, because when families are so busy working paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, they can't contribute to their own community. Like all of the
no,
activism that you do and the committees that you're a part of, it's important for us to have people like you do that. But when other residents are just struggling, 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 that's all they can think about every day instead of
100%.
spreading their skills to help better the community. So it really it kind of it has a bad effect, you
It
know?
does have a bad effect, and that's why, I don't like the whole handout, it's not, I don't want to, I'm so sick and tired of like the handout. Give them a hand up, you know,
Mhm.
raise up the community. Don't just keep this stagnation where we're again bridging the gap. It's prolonging the suffering, right? So, I speak because I've seen all sides of the coin, being a mom, and I can't tell you that there wasn't a time in my life where I wasn't exchanging time for dollars because I needed to put food at the table. There's things that need to be done, and that required me spending less time with my children so that I can go and I provide for them. So how many kids almost feel like they're in like a parentless home because mom and dad have to work, or just mom or just dad, whatever the case. And it goes beyond just education. I mean, school is a home for some of these kids, you know.
A
Um,
home, a meal.
it's a meal, it's safety, it's protection. And so, I just sit here and I look at that and I'm like, gosh, you've desensitized what it means for a student to go to school, and what a privilege it is to be able to go to school for free in most cases, you know? And when I look at it and I see like, oh my gosh, the school district has a negative budget for lunch money, right? All the families that owe money to the school district because they can't afford it, when we have excess funds, why not maybe throw money at providing, zero balances for the families that can't afford it. Like, help the community with the very money you're getting from them that we're contributing to. Why not? I don't know what the answer is, but the reality is that it's just, there's all this spending, all the things, and nickel and diming the taxpayer to death. And
Mhm.
it becomes a nuclear family issue. And then we want people to be home, and we want them to be at home with their families and be the family people that we know Americans to be. But how do you do that when you keep taking from the family? They bring home 20, you take 40.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't, you just, it's unlivable. And it's just a rat race that goes nowhere. It's an infinite rat race for these families. And, I just I find it really difficult to be
Well,
supportive.
you said it earlier when you were saying, there's no industry, so you can't really make a living here. So, but we're
No.
building more houses. We want more people to live here. We're putting more people in an area where they can't work and make a living,
Hmm.
and that's what creates this system of families working all the time, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. And if you end up getting divorced, because money does create a relationship issue, friction in the household, and then you have
100%.
people getting divorced. Now you have single moms trying to raise kids on a low income. Now they're exchanging time for money. And
Hmm.
when you exchange time for money, who's watching the kids? Now the kids are having to raise themselves. So it's like a
Yes.
domino effect where, oh, look, we're going to now we're worried about, and then when you build, like we're talking about no tax on home ownerships, right? Now
Hmm.
you're worried about losing your income because you weren't thinking, hey, we got to have a combination of industry and housing. We need the people that live here to be able to work here and make a living. We need competitive wages. All of those things come together. And
Hmm.
like you said, the way we're building Indian River County, it's not conducive to a better future.
Right. And even, I mean, gosh, I look at, programs that are being offered at the schools, I don't know, gosh, I hate saying it, but like none of that really I wouldn't want to keep my kid in this community necessarily because there is no industry. I want them to do, you know, aerospace engineering, or, you know, go to NASA, go to, you know, whatever, go learn how to fly a plane, do this, do that. Like the, you know, the world is your oasis kind of thing. And we limit them to what they can do because we give them education in a box. And that's what I
Mhm.
call a lot of these things are education in a box. No, you know what? Let's explore what education looks like. And that's so different for every child. I mean, I'm not 100% um, in agreement to having, especially little boys, sitting in a seat for 6.5, 7 hours. You know, I think that boys and girls are very different, right? And they need to
Yep.
be,
Mhm.
you know, and girls too, even. But you know, let's just talk about the boys. You know, they climbing a tree and digging and looking for worms and moles and getting into that, right? Getting into all of the boy things, right? And then there's boys who don't want to do that. Maybe they want to go build something. Give them a chance to do that and watch these kids do it. And they come to life when you provide them with an environment of exploration, not this is what you're doing.
Yeah, and
And
that's a good point because we have Piper Air Force here, airport here. And do you know that when raising my kids and raising your kids, when did they ever take a field trip to the airport
I know.
to see a plane, to see there are people that fly planes,
Hmm.
to introduce another uh, profession and something
Yeah.
to open their eyes to. You know, I know when my son was young, I took him to an airport in Orlando and he decided, I want to learn to fly. And those questions come up, and then you can introduce the youngest, what was the name of that little girl that flew a plane almost
Oh,
around the world? Remember,
I
you
remember
tell
that.
them these stories and they're inspirational, but
Yeah.
yeah, we've kind of like shortened the
Yeah.
knowledge and the expansion and the interest of the kids by putting them in a box, like you said.
Yeah, so education in a box, you know, I always say HMH is like that, education in a box, you know, amplify education in a box. And I'm not saying that it's a wrong way. There's just other ways, and there's many ways to do that. And I think that we shrink the concept of American excellence and free thinking because we're telling them what to think and not teaching them how to
How to
think.
think. Exactly.
Right. So, you know, it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of actual, you know, time and effort into raising those kids and teaching them that way. But our educators, I mean, that's really a work of heart, truly. And when you put them in a box, just like you put a healthcare provider in a box, what happens? They're in a box and they can't actually provide the service that we want them to because they're so worried about meeting deadlines and state testing and all this extra
Filling out
government,
forms and paperwork.
all the governance that is built into it is so detrimental, and it's such a disservice to the student, um, and anyway, to the families, right? But I mean, one problem at a time, really. So, you know,
It's
right now the focus is let kids be kids. You know, I want them to
mhm.
see them happy and enjoy the environment that they're in. But I also want like families at our school, at the North County School, to feel like they have a voice, that they're being listened to, they're heard. You know, even if there's no conflict resolution at the moment, let's come to that. Let's come to the table and take care of that, to some capacity. And like I said, at the state level, people call, gosh, and really, you know, Mr. McDonald, you said, you know, what do I do as a district aide? I listen a lot. um, you know, as a district aide, my job is to liaise between the voting members, right? Our Indian River County and South Brevard County, and between the agencies which are part of the executive branch. All those agencies like DCF, ACA, DOC, DEP, all of those acronyms. I liaise the voter, myself, and them. And when I contact an agency, I'm contacting a legislative deputy or somebody that's overseeing that particular agency, kind of like the right hand men and women to the governor. And I have a really good relationship with a lot of these agencies, and I get a lot of really good results. And in cases like with DCF, a lot of people call because they're on medication and they get cut off. A caseworker made a mistake, boom, they get their
Wow.
benefits completely taken away. And they have, they're on antipsychotics or they're on diabetes medication or they're taking care of their child that happens to be, disabled for the rest of their life, impaired cognitively, whatever the case might be. And one little error, one mistype causes them to lose it all. And they're completely
Wow.
dependent on these services. So I call the agencies and then I escalate. I ask them to escalate and they look in. And I tell you what, those individuals, man, they work so fast, so hard, and they get the job done. I discourage people from calling the customer service line because you'll be there for the rest of your life. Um, so I basically, I'm asking for more work, but that is my job. And I mean, I've had people call me crying, like, thank you so much. And you don't have to thank me, it's my job. But also,
But you do your
man,
job because you love that. It's not
I
just your
do.
Well,
job.
you don't just do one job; you do a lot of jobs.
You
It's been
love what
amazing
you do.
hearing you talk. You're such a busy woman, and you got your hands in so many different pots, so many
Yeah,
different things that you're investing in. So, I mean,
yeah.
you're a great asset to the community
Yes.
because
Thank you. I
you
appreciate
do
that.
fill in a lot of different things. To do just one of the things that you do is a lot, and you do several different things, most of them for no pay. And
Hmm.
so we appreciate how hard you work. We also have to say thank you for not only for doing all this, but for coming on and talking about it and telling us about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I
And
appreciate that.
yes, and Susan, you do it with grace and love.
Thank you. Yes.
With grace
Yep.
and love and
Yeah.
knowledge. So, I mean, you're growing. From the day I met you, you are just an amazing woman,
Thank you.
and you are a great leader. You are a leader, and there are a lot of young women that should be looking up to you and following your lead, and you're a great mom. So, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us
Yeah.
today. And we've
Yeah.
kept you on for quite a bit, but
Oh, it's fine.
you've filled us with so much knowledge, and we are so appreciative that you are Robbie
Absolutely.
Brackett's aide, and all the committees that you're on, like Kevin was saying. But we need to let you go because I know you
Look at
have a
it. Yeah.
family. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me
Thank
on.
you. Thank
Yes,
you.
this is
It's been
this
wonderful
is my
listening to
first
you.
time. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you guys taking the time to even invite me on. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I look forward. And if you guys have anything else, you just let me know. You
Yeah,
have my
and
number.
we'd love to
Great.
have you back. Okay.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
Anytime. Thank
Good
you guys
night.
so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Wow, she was a great guest. I really loved listening to her. She's so knowledgeable and articulate. Young lady.
She's like having 4 different guests on because she's got 4 different areas she's really deeply involved in.
Yes, and she explains them well, and it was absolutely wonderful to have her on as a guest. And thank you for co-hosting with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I really
I
loved
think
having
I'm
you
gonna
on.
go. I'm gonna go back to the Swiss Alps here, and
All right. Well, I guess we're going to close the evening out and thank all of our viewers today that were watching us. To remember to share, like, and subscribe. We're on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. And join us every Friday at 7 p.m. for local news on the board report brought to you by IRC Media. And also remember, Kevin McDonald, you are the previous school board member, but also I want them to remember that Thomas Augustus, he is the editor-in-chief of the Sunshine Journal, and please look him up at thomasaugustus.substack.com. And also Jennifer Pippin, she's one of our contributors. She's not with us tonight, but remember to look her up on Facebook under Moms for Liberty. She is the Indian River County chapter chair for Moms for Liberty. And remember to connect with all of our podcasters, contributors like Able Child, Shattering the Narrative, Conspiracy Club, every second Thursday of the month at Filthies, and the Spark Free Press. And you can go to all of those podcasts by visiting IndianRiverConnections.com. All right, so we're going to close it out tonight. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
thank you.
All right, good night. Good night, everybody.
Indian River Connections brings you the first source you can watch for truth on. Board decisions in Indian River County. The Board Report, where taxpayers and policymakers intersect. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform to get notified when we go live on Fridays at 7 p.m. Visit IndianRiverConnections.com for more.